Right now, buy any new carpet at the Home Depot and the installation is only $37 for the whole house. So let's cover more rooms with the same budget and get best-in-class carpet installation with a lifetime warranty. Call 1-800-HOME-DEPOT or visit a local store to get started. Let's do this. Whole home carpet installation, just $37. More saving, more doing. That's the power of the Home Depot. Valid through May 20th. Minimum $4.99 purchase of carpet and pad. U.S. only.
Mysteries abound around the world, from strange lights in the night sky to ghostly apparitions passing from one realm to the next. From the great pyramids of Egypt to what lies beneath the depths of Loch Ness. From Bigfoot to Atlantis, they are all mysteries waiting to be solved. Join Laurie Phillips, Lauren Smith, Graz, and Billy Simmons as they search for the truth on Nite Callers Radio.
Good evening and welcome to Nite Callers Bigfoot Radio. It's May 14th, 2015, and you've got partial crew here tonight. You've got me, Lauren, you got Graz and Billy, and Lori is listening in because she cannot talk for more than 5 seconds without hacking up a lung. How you guys doing tonight?
Well, I'm feeling kind of partial.
Partial? Okay.
Yeah. Well, Billy's always partial anyway. He's never really total.
That's
He's
the truth.
We weren't going to talk about that, remember?
Yeah, well.
It's okay, Billy. You're still a man, even though you're partial.
Absolutely.
I'm going to lure Wild Bill out of his cave sometime tonight.
Ooh, I don't know.
Ooh. Have y'all had anything going on around your park besides rain?
Yeah. lots and lots of rain.
Yes.
I did have some hooping going on last night about 1:30 outside, but I didn't feel like getting up and fooling with it. I turned over and went back to sleep. So.
Well, you need to keep your mother-in-law inside the house, you know?
That's true. That's true.
Mm-hmm. Yep. What about you, Graz? Did you get to go out last weekend?
Yeah, I'm still checking out some new roads, but I went out too far this time, and basically after an hour and a half of driving, I said to hell with it and turned around and went back. I think I'm just going to have to stick with some local stuff, get to know some local areas. It was a good day for a drive anyway. I pulled over and had a nice lunch down by the lake again. Went up, played around for a little while. Didn't find anything that I could say was any signs or anything. But it was a good day to get out. $25 worth of gas later, but and this weekend it's going to be raining, so I'm not going to go out this weekend.
Yep. It's been raining here non-stop for the last month, it feels like. So, we're kind of ready to build an ark, honestly. Well,
of course, there's some out there saying, "Hey, man, I'd be out there in the rain anyway." You know, man. I mean,
yeah.
You guys are weak, man. You guys are weak.
Mhm. Yeah. Well.
And again, you people down there, when you get rain, it's sideways, and you're looking through it trying to find something.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah, it's no joke. I know we have all the wildlife is on our back porch right now. We have frogs and crickets and all kinds of stuff. So we feel like we're in the Louisiana swamps up here. It's crazy. So tonight we have Todd and Diane Neiss, which I'm hoping I'm saying correctly, from Portland, Oregon. And I don't know about you guys, but I'm really excited to talk to them. So, y'all, Graz, you want to roll that beautiful bio?
Ladies and gentlemen, in continuing the series for the North American Sasquatch Researcher, Nite Callers Bigfoot Radio is excited to bring you a husband-wife duo. And like you said, I hope we're saying it right, Todd and Diane Neiss. We forgot to ask him before.
You got it right.
Just don't call him Karen.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. I've read things wrong at times, and it's been interesting. Eyewitness turned researcher Todd is an active duty staff sergeant in the Oregon National Guard, Army National Guard, and a veteran of the Iraq War. He founded the American Primate Foundation in 1998, actively researching these elusive creatures for over 2 decades. Todd has been the subject of many television shows and documentaries and has been a featured speaker at numerous Bigfoot conferences across the U.S. and Canada. He holds an Associate of Arts degree in Multi-Disciplinary Studies from Grantham University. Diane Stocking Neiss is currently, I know that name, Diane Stocking, is currently employed by the Oregon Department of Human Services and founded Stocking Hominid Research in 2007. She, too, has given lectures at various conferences as well as appeared on television. Diane became interested in Bigfoot at a very young age and went on to conduct research in the Southeastern United States as far back as 1974. She co-authored the cryptozoological book Elementum Bestia. I think I said that right. I do Latin pretty good. In 2007, after visiting the Pacific
French.
Northwest in the 1990s, Stocking ultimately moved to Oregon, where she continues her research with her husband Todd. Diane holds an Associate of Science degree in Forestry from Lake City Forestry College in Florida. Todd and Diane live aboard a 42-foot motor yacht christened... here we go again. I'm going to ruin this one for you, too. Would you care, Todd, to say that name? Jadu.
Yes, it's Jadu Shikari.
Jadu Shikari, thank you very much. Hindu for Mystery Hunter.
There you go.
In Portland, Oregon. Upon retiring, they plan to utilize the yacht as a research vessel, exploring the numerous wilderness inlets along the British Columbian coastline in search of Bigfoot. Equipped with a mass-mounted remote-control FLIR camera, they intend to explore intercoastal islands and scour their shorelines and interior for any evidence of these elusive creatures. Thank you very much.
Welcome to Nite Callers, Todd and Diane. We're really glad to have you guys here.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Yeah. I think it's pretty cool that y'all live on a yacht and that you use it as a Bigfoot research machine. So what's that like?
It's awesome.
I don't doubt it.
we have our house and we can take it anywhere we want to. So we can go by boat or we can go by car and check out woods. We're really looking forward to being able to take it up to British Columbia and just going in and out of all those inlets that go miles in.
Yeah.
And, it's going to be exciting.
Yeah, I think that's going to yield some good research. I mean, that sounds like...
That's a bit down the road yet.
Yeah, yeah, but when you get to it, I think that's going to be, untapped gold mine there. So how did you two meet? So I assume by Bigfoot, but...
Yeah, we've actually known each other for, over 20 years. Actually, Todd and I met as researchers through the first actual group, Bigfoot group online, which was the IVBC, which was started by Henry Franzoni in their, oh gosh, I'm brain dead here. There's the Virtual Bigfoot
Conference.
Yeah, and so that's how a bunch of us old-timers actually, got met up with each other, being that we lived all over the country, North America, Canada.
Right.
And so, yeah, we've known each other for a long time just as researchers and with Bigfoot.
Well, that's pretty cool. It's kind of rare to find couples in this, in the community and everything. It's really nice, I assume, to have your partner support you like that and be interested in the same thing.
Yeah, makes things easier around the household.
Yeah, definitely. All right, well, I want to jump right in. If you two could take turns and tell us how you each became interested in Bigfoot in this topic. Whoever wants to go first.
Well, I'll take that, I guess. My entrance into Bigfooting was somewhat abrupt in that I had a very unusual sighting back in 1993. And I should say prior to that, I was probably one of the biggest skeptics you'd ever come across. When you grow up in the Pacific Northwest, you can't help but hear the stories, and I certainly had, but I wasn't interested to really watch any of the TV shows or even read any of the books. But that all changed for me in 1993. Back then, as today, I was in the Army National Guard. Back then, being a traditional guardsman, we would do our drills, they call them, once a month, training exercises. And as a combat engineer with the 1249th Combat Engineers, and that involves the use of a lot of explosives. And on this particular day, April 3rd of 1993, we had the opportunity to, once a year, we would go up on the private timberland and do some very large demolition exercises. And this particular day, we had 3 different rock quarries that we were utilizing. This was, again, on private timberland, off limits to the public. And we had, I'll try to give you a short version here, we'd completed 2 of the 3 demolition exercises, and we're just finishing the 3rd, which involved a cratering charge, where we used a couple 100 pounds of ammonium nitrate that we'd been soaking in diesel fuel. And as standard procedure, we would, once we lit the fuses, we had about 11 minutes to get out of there and get down to a safety staging area. We'd go down there, wait for the explosion, and then go back later and check our work. Mm-hmm. And so this day we had lit the fuses and got in our vehicles. We had a convoy of 2 Humvee Jeeps up front, troop transport, covered deuce and a half, and then a 3rd Humvee in the back, the commander's vehicle. And I was in the 2nd Jeep, and you'll have to excuse the background noise. We live fairly close to an airport.
That's all right.
But anyway, I was sitting behind the driver, with the window unzipped, and it was a very nice day for April. And this is an area that I had hunted for deer and elk quite a bit, actually. And so it was my routine, really, that any time I was out there, I'm always scouring the countryside looking for any sign of wildlife. And we rounded this corner on our way down, and the second blast site came into view. And as I looked across the ravine to where this site was, I saw these three huge figures standing upright on two legs, jet black, and built like bodybuilders. Really, there was no question they weren't human. And I say that because of just the silhouettes that they presented were, well, typical of what you hear about Bigfoot. The head sitting squarely on the shoulders, no visible neck, arms that reach down well below their knees, incredibly long legs to go with it, and I just sat there staring in shock, to be quite honest with you. They stood three abreast. They were definitely watching our convoy. The one in the middle, being the largest, just stood there like a statue. It didn't move at all, really. But the two that flanked it on either side, which by no means were small, they exhibited this behavior of just rocking back and forth, side to side, with their arms swinging clearly in front of their knees, just shifting weight from one foot to the other. And it was just, like I say, I was just in shock. I had a full 25-second viewing time as we were, driving away from this bomb that was cooking off behind us. And, after about 25 seconds or so, we rounded a corner again, and I lost sight of him, and just slumped back in my seat, and I just tried to comprehend what I'd just seen. As we got back down to the staging area, being in one of the lead vehicles, I jumped out and kind of jogged back up the road a ways. I wanted to try to get another glimpse of him, but I quickly realized that I would have to go several hundred yards up the road before I'd get a sight of him. There was a hill that kind of blocked my view, so I kind of, as I stood there with my hand up to my brow, as you can imagine, staring off in the distance, I was approached by another soldier, Sergeant Martin. I heard him yell out, "Hey, Neiss!" And I looked over, and I saw Jeff walking my way, smoking a cigarette, and he said, "What are you looking at?" And I said, I dropped my hand to my side. I said, "Nothing." And he continued to come up to where I was and said something that I'll never forget. He said, "I don't suppose you saw what I saw down at that second blast site." Well, I wasn't going to be the one to say it. I said, "I don't know, Jeff, what did you see?" And he said, "Well, I saw three jet black, hair covered," and he said, for lack of a better word, I Bigfoot. And of course, at that, I was, obviously relieved that somebody else had seen it. Not that I needed the corroboration, but it was nice to know that somebody else had seen it. And then in the course of the next month, again, we drilled once a month. That very next month, there were two other soldiers who ultimately came forward and also admitted to seeing the same thing. So a very unusual sighting, I say, because, multiple animals, the nature of what we were doing, multiple eyewitnesses, and that's how I got started in it. It's definitely a mind-opening experience for me, and I've been chasing these things for 22 plus years now.
Man, that's a phenomenal experience. I mean, and to have it corroborated by 3 other people, that's pretty rare. And
now, had you already done blasting at that site that they were standing in?
Yes, in fact, that was the second site that we had detonated probably an hour or so earlier.
You had moved up to the third site, so they're down there checking out the blast site that you had already blown up.
Yeah, I suspect that they were, once they knew that we had moved out of that area, they came out to investigate. Which is, yeah. Well, and a lot of people say, well, you imagine when this big mushroom cloud went up there at the second site that any animal in the area would be going 360 degrees the opposite direction. But the fact that these creatures decided to come back and check it out, I think speaks a lot to their intelligence. Their curiosity has got the best of them, and like I say, once they knew we were out of the area, they couldn't help but come back and look. I liken it to, for instance, imagine you're sitting on your porch at home, and suddenly, without warning, a plane crashes into your neighborhood. Mm-hmm. And there's an explosion, and there's a fireball, and it's a couple blocks away. And initially, you're going to be shook up about it, but I think ultimately you're going to run toward that, and if not just for morbid curiosity, to maybe see if you can help or whatever. But I don't think a lot of people wouldn't at least go and investigate that. And again, I think that speaks highly of their intelligence level.
Mm-hmm. Definitely.
How good of a view did you get as far as the details are concerned?
Well, they were a couple hundred meters off, but they were clearly definable in that by contrast, these jet black creatures were standing in an open gravel pit. This was basalt rock, which is a very light gray rock. So they stood out like a sore thumb. I was not close enough to make out, say, facial features or necessarily or gender, but they were all, like I said, they were all built like bodybuilders. I mean, their shoulders were huge, and they had barrel chests, but you could clearly see that the waist tapered down from the chest, and they'd make good football players.
Now, you had already seen the Patty film before, previous to that, hadn't you?
I probably had. I've seen it, thousands of times since, but that film's been shown so many times. I venture that I probably had seen it in the past.
Mm-hmm.
But again, it wasn't anything that I studied.
What kind of an impression they made on you compared to something that you might have had in the back of your head about what a Bigfoot is, or anything that had straightened you out as far as anything?
Well, I have to say, when comparing it with Patty, there's a huge contrast in that when I look at Patty, she seems to be very thick through the middle. And my guess is that she was either pregnant or recently had offspring because she had, her breasts are pretty full for, I would imagine she was either nursing or getting ready to. But these things were very, very fit compared to Patty.
Mm-hmm.
But I didn't have any real preconceptions of what they should look like. I can tell you they looked, they just like I described. They were just enormous. That one in the middle I estimated to be close to 9 feet in height. and the two that flanked it came up to its shoulders, and I would guess roughly 7 feet tall each.
Different ages, you might guess.
Could have been a family group. Could have been a male and a couple females. I really don't know, but they could have been adolescent Bigfoot as well.
So I've read your account and heard your account before, and I think it's awesome. I mean, it's fascinating. I know you said the first thought in your head, not the first thought, but one of the thoughts in your head was who to tell. Do I tell someone about this? Can you tell us about that? Kind of what went through your head?
Well, when you see something like that that's scientifically incredible and historical, one of the first things that runs through your mind is, I've got to tell somebody. I've got, people have to know about this, and you kind of run through a laundry list of, who you're going to go to, the Fish and Wildlife, or Forest Service, the police, the zoo. You start picking them off, and you're like, who's going to believe me? I can't prove it. It's simply my word. And like so many people that I've interviewed over the past, I had at that point came to the conclusion to keep my mouth shut about it, because again, there's that ridicule factor. At that particular time in my life, I'd worked very hard for my reputation. I was a family man and a non-commissioned officer, and my day job was a vice president of a shipping company, and you have to kind of put that on a scale and go, is it worth risking my reputation, and is it worth risking people questioning my credibility or maybe even my sanity to get this information out? And I have to say, had Jeff not come up and admitted that he had seen it, I may not have ever gone public about it. But once I knew that we had other witnesses, I gave me a little more confidence in going public about it.
I can imagine. So from there, did you tell anybody else besides the officers? Other officers that saw it?
No, actually. Well, I take that back. Not in the military, I did not. No, I did when I got back to my civilian job. There were very few people I confided in. My father was one, and a couple close friends. I remember telling my father's friend Denny about it, and he wasn't the least bit shocked, really, and he said, who you need to talk to is our secretary, who happened to live down in the Tillamook area, which is also in the Oregon Coast Range. He said, she grew up down there. You should ask her if she's ever seen anything. So I did. I kind of sheepishly went over and I asked her. Her name was Melissa. I said, hey, Melissa, you grew up in Tillamook, right? And she goes, yeah. And this is a coastal town, but it backs right up to the Coast Range and the forest. And I said, growing up down there, did you ever hear any stories about Bigfoot? And without missing a beat, as if I was talking about cows, she said, oh, you mean Cape apes? I said, what? She goes, oh, Cape apes, that's what we call them.
Oh, my gosh.
So, and I would, and I'd come to find out that over time, that a lot of people, a lot more people than I ever suspected, either knew or know of somebody, or they themselves have had encounters. So it really doesn't surprise me anymore.
Mm. That's crazy. It's so crazy and fascinating to me still to this day how once you ask that question, there's like a 50-50 chance that you're either going to be laughed at and get that question, oh, you believe in Bigfoot? Or they're going to be like, oh, you know what, my great uncle saw one. Or, yeah, my family's all about that. It's amazing to me, especially since Finding Bigfoot came out. You know, it's pretty cool. Are you and Diane in the same room now? Because there was some echoing going on. I just want to,
Yeah.
Okay.
No, we're not, actually.
Oh, okay. I don't know why it was echoing. That's weird.
Yeah, I heard it too.
Thank you for telling us your story. That's probably one of my favorite encounters. I've heard it before, and it's amazing to me, having all that backup that you had and everything. So if you don't mind, I'm going to move on to Diane. And Diane, if you'll tell us how you got interested in this topic.
Okay, well, basically I grew up in Cutler Ridge, Florida, which is South Miami. It's about 30 minutes north of Key Largo. And back then, everything west of US 1 was the Everglades, or it was tomato farms or some kind of farming. So it was back in, you always get the rag magazines and newspapers and the, checkout line, and, I had Bigfoot's baby and stuff, so I heard stuff like that or read stuff like that, but I didn't really get totally fascinated with it until about 74 when there was a sighting on Alligator Alley, which is the road that cuts between Miami and Naples, which is on the west coast of Florida. And there was a guy going to work one morning. I can't remember now if it was a Lincoln or a Cadillac, but back in the 70s, they were like tanks. And he was driving to work, and he was on Alligator Alley heading west, and something ran across the road in front of him, and he hit it. And so he saw what it was. He immediately turned around, went to the first little fish shack, bait shop, and called the police. A highway patrolman came out and met him, and they went to the site. And the highway patrolman, they talked, and he said, okay, and they could tell something was rustling around in the brush, in the woods off the road. And back then there was nothing. There was just the road and the Everglades. And the highway patrolman, he set off. He went down the ditch and walked into the woods, and this thing stood up in front of him. And he basically just turned around and went back to the road and called for backup. They had county police and highway patrol and helicopters and dogs out there looking for this thing. They never found it. They found a few things like an uprooted tree or a dog that had been bitten in the neck. Of course, they don't, know if that was associated with it. But that encounter, just because it involved the police and that highway patrolman that actually saw it as well, it totally caught me. And I've been doing Bigfoot research ever since, reading everything I could, going to the libraries, doing microfiche, looking up, for anybody that knows what microfiche is nowadays.
Microfiche? What's that?
Yeah. You go to the library, and there's little films that you put through a machine.
I saw those in a museum, I think I did.
I think so. But I looked at it. Yeah, back then it was a lot of work looking through newspaper articles and anything and everything I could get my hands on. My poor teachers in school, I wrote every term paper was on Bigfoot. Back then, my heroes were John Green and Grover and Peter Byrne. The first book I ever bought was Peter's book, and then the second book I ever bought was B.N. Slate and Al Berry's book. And, everything I could get my hands on. And I've been doing research ever since. I've always been extremely fascinated with animal behavior, and I love the woods and the outdoors, probably why I went into forestry. That's basically it. It's caught me, and I've been looking into it ever since.
And so what about your first experience?
I never had seen one.
Okay.
I have never had an encounter. I mean, and for anybody out there that knows me, I'm the skeptic here. It's, as far as I'm concerned, I have never seen one up close and personal, face to face. I've found tracks, handprints, things like that, and research sightings, but I've never seen one.
You and I are together on that. I've had encounters, but never a sighting. But that's all right. It'll happen, I guess when it happens.
Yeah.
Well, encounters come in different forms too. I mean, there's visual encounters, audible encounters, smell encounters even, and I've experienced pretty much all the above, but only the one sighting back in '93. I've gotten very, very close to them in my research, including I'd say almost too close once back in 1998. I had organized an expedition at the base of Saddle Mountain, which was not far from where I had my sighting. I had Peter Byrne and Ron Moorhead along as part of my team. And I was setting up some seismic ground sensors up above our base camp. And a hailstorm came into the area, so I took refuge under some old-growth fir trees up a little higher up on the mountain. And while I was there, I answered the call of nature, and just as I'm buckling my belt back up, I got roared at very close range, probably less than 100 feet away, easily. And I was literally paralyzed with fear. I could not move if I wanted to. And but this thing never showed itself. It never came out from behind this. There was a hedge of Scotch broom and salal that it was behind, but I have never heard anything like that in my life, and it was excruciatingly loud. And it took me nearly 2 minutes before I could even blink. I just was frozen on the spot. So yeah, like I say, encounters come in different forms, and visual ones are kind of the holy grail. But
yeah, Diane, have you had anything like that happen to you?
I've had one experience that I will remember. I was investigating a sighting that two boys had out hunting on some timber property on the panhandle of Florida. And I was walking down a very unused logging road and just walking into the area, and it was like I just hit a wall. I got this feeling that, you don't need to be here and you need to turn around and go back. And I don't know what it was, but I turned around and I went back to my truck. I don't know if it was infrasound, and I tend to move towards the biological and the scientific as far as the other animals that can produce infrasound. Alligators, for one. I know alligators well.
Right.
Even waves hitting the shore, rocks, produces infrasound. And so it affects people in different ways. And I don't know if this was the case where, something out there could have vocalized, and it was, so the range was so low in hertz that I didn't hear it, but I felt something. I don't know. I've heard lots of things in the woods. I am the one that if I don't see it, then I'm not going to say it's a Bigfoot. If I hear something walking around my campsite, I'm not going to say it's a Bigfoot unless I see it. So, that basically is the only time it really actually comes, hit me.
Would you just categorize that as just a really strong sense of the willies or an actual physical event? Because it can cross over a little bit where the
it was more of
red.
Yeah, it was more of a it wasn't just the willies, because I've had those out in the woods. It was a definite feeling I got of, this is not good. You need to turn around. a physical thing that I felt. It wasn't just the willies.
Every time I got hit with it, I go to sleep. And I'll be sitting there. Yeah, it's really weird. I'll be sitting there and I'll be, just, Mom, we need to go, we need to go, we need to go, we need to go. And then all of a sudden it's just a melt down in my seat and it gets all warm and I get really sleepy. I've had it happen 2 or 3 times now, and it's when we had a lot of action going on. Like you, I try not to say, oh, all this going on is Bigfoot, but we had some hinky things going on, and then all of a sudden I would just, instead of being terrified or antsy and wanting to leave or just antsy, I would just chill out and almost fall asleep. It's been really weird.
And sound affects people differently. Some get nauseated, some get tired, some get the strong feeling of dread, nervousness. It affects people differently. Of course, when you're dealing with alligators, he's just trying to, signal to a possible mate. Yeah, hey, I'm over here. So,
well, let's hope that's not what Bigfoot's doing to us.
Oh gosh, let's hope not.
Well, and we know that not just alligators, tigers and elephants and whale all use infrasound.
Yeah, it's pretty. I mean, the research on that is really interesting to me.
Well, that's something I'd like to do in our research area if I can find the right equipment that can actually measure infrasound, below human hearing range.
Some of the people have been talking about doing that themselves, trying to get it on digital in some fashion.
You'd have to have, I think, some specialized equipment to be able to actually record that. But it's out there.
When I had the willies myself, that's what made me turn around, and I had to actually walk into the woods to find out what the hell it was. That's when I had my sighting.
Good job.
Okay.
Well, I'm not much for just running away from that thing, and well, I had to see it before I turned around and run away like a little girl, but I was out in the woods by myself. But I had to find out what it was, at least. Yeah.
I'm like, it was, and I'm always out in the woods by myself, well, until Todd and I got married. And everybody that knows me knows that I'm the one that goes out there, me, or just, me and the dogs. But this was something different. This was a definite, something that I didn't feel safe being out there. And, otherwise, if it was just the willies, I'd have kept going. Right. Yeah, this was something different, yeah.
Yeah, I was gold panning myself, and I got the hair standing up in the back of my neck and that kind of thing going on. I packed up everything back into my pack, and I was going to walk back down to the Jeep, but I decided I got to find out what the hell that was. It wasn't like an infrasound kind of thing that would, put the fear of God into you, or the dread that a lot of people describe. This was more like, what the hell? And it was only playing peekaboo at me from behind a tree. But that was enough for me to get back to the Jeep by myself out in the middle of the woods without a gun.
Yeah, and you do hear about that kind of experience. I've got several friends that have had that experience, that they were being watched or followed, and these are people that spend a lot of time in the woods and aren't easily rattled. One such case I remember, a friend of mine, Tony Parasso, had a gold mining claim up in the Blue Mountains. And he brought some friends up there, Stan Parks and his son, and his friend Barry. And he's got 7 hard rock mines around his cabin up there, and it's extremely, extremely remote. I've been up there a few times, and you can be there a week and not see another human being. And he decided to take Stan and his son up on the hillside to show them there's a mine up there called the Aurelia mine, which is named after his grandmother. And Barry had seen it before, so he just decided to go on a walk down along Ruby Creek, which runs behind the cabin. Not that Ruby Creek that you're probably thinking of in Canada, but a different Ruby Creek. Anyway, so Barry takes off on this walk down below while they go up above to the Aurelia, and while they're standing there, Stan sees this dark figure moving very quickly through the field near another mine that was called the Cat Mine. And at that time of year, it was summer, and the grass is usually about knee-high to a human. And he points this out to Tony. He goes, "Look at that guy run." But he said, in hindsight, he said the thing wasn't running at all. It was just walking, but it was covering a lot of real estate very quickly, even walking. And Tony went on to describe that the grass only came up to about mid-calf on this thing. This thing stepped over Ruby Creek and went off into a thicket of lodgepole pines, that half of which were blown over. So, I mean, it was just like mumbly pegs. You know, I've hunted through there, and it's very difficult to go through. You're always kind of having to straddle and hurdle these lodgepole pines, and he said this thing just went walking through it like they were nothing. When they got back to the cabin, they talked to Barry about it. Barry said, "You know, it's so weird. When I go on hikes around here, I always carry a revolver in my backpack, but and it's got a holster, but I never holster it." And he goes, "Well, you guys were up there at the Aurelia. I was walking down below near the Cat Mine, and for reasons I can't explain, I got this weird sensation, and I took my day pack off, and I pulled my gun out for the first time and holstered it." He goes, "I don't know why, but you know, now that you mention what you saw," he says, "it makes sense," but he said, "I never saw anything. I didn't smell anything. I just got a sudden panic attack, if you will." So, I mean, whether that's infrasound or maybe even pheromones, who knows? And not all pheromones are really detectable either. So, and these things are, of course, known to put off smell of some sort.
Well, their pheromones probably wouldn't smell too good to us anyway, one way or the other.
No. That urine smell does nothing for me.
So how long have you two been together?
Well, we've been, like Diane says, we've known each other for close to 20 years, but we got close a couple of years ago, and we actually got married last July, a surprise wedding, if you will. We actually got married at an event that we host called Beachfoot, and it was a total surprise to everyone in the audience. We didn't tell anybody. We just put on the schedule that we were going to have a special event at 6:30, and I had found out one of our friends and one of our speakers, Professor Retman Mullis, also happened to be an ordained minister. I found this out a couple months ahead of time, and so I called Retman. I said, "How'd you like to have some fun at Beachfoot?" And he agreed to perform the ceremony, and we literally had 100 of our best friends and fellow researchers, kind of a captive audience. We saved a lot of money on invitations.
Yeah. But, did he give you a Bigfootology discount too?
Oh yeah. No, it's kind of funny because he came out and took the microphone, and Diane and I were kind of hiding behind the wall of this outdoor pavilion. And he says, "Most of you know me as Professor Mullins, but I also wear another hat." He said, "I'd like to try that on right now." And he pulls out this sash, that pastors wear over their shoulders, and puts that on, and you could have heard a pin drop. They're probably thinking, "Oh gosh, we've never had church at Beachfoot before," and they're like, "What's going on?" And all of a sudden he says, "Todd and Diane, would you please join me?" And so we came out and got real quiet then. But I think they probably thought it was a skit or something at first, but it was the real deal. So, yeah, we got married right there at Beachfoot amongst all of our close friends and fellow researchers, and our wedding license is actually witnessed by Bob Gimlin and Peter Byrne.
There you go.
I
don't think you could do it better than that. Yeah, I don't think you could do it better than that. That's romantic right there.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun.
So, single ladies out there, Graz is available. So just IM me and I will get you set up. As you can see, love can happen in the Bigfoot community.
I can give Retman a call and we can meet down at Beachfoot.
There you go.
Oh yeah,
could be a bad habit.
Oh man, I think that's awesome. I mean, I think that's awesome, especially the surprise element. But just that you were met through the topic and married, surrounded by everyone who cares about the topic. I think that's awesome. And now you're living on a yacht together, researching Bigfoot. I mean, you're living the sweet life, guys.
Well, the funny thing about that was we literally had to do a rush wedding because at 7 o'clock, mind you that we started this whole thing at 6. At 7 o'clock, I had arranged for Les Stroud to give a live Skype interview, two-way talk with the audience from Ontario, Canada. And so we literally had 30 minutes to do the wedding and hugs and kisses and photographs, and then everybody back in your seats. So we could be ready for Les when he came on.
I actually think that's the best way to do it, because then you don't have to, thank you. Okay, and here's Les Stroud.
Yep.
Follow it up with that.
And bam, you're married.
Exactly.
Yeah, that works.
I think that's awesome. That's awesome. I think we have a question from the chat. Possibly. Billy?
Sure.
Billy. You're Billy.
I got it. I was opening the room and muted on the phone. So, this question is from Ramble One, and based on your many reports that you've received, do you think Bigfoot is very dangerous, or are they more likely to pass us by?
Personally, I think they're very reclusive and don't want a heck of a lot to do with us. Like any animal, they under the wrong conditions, they can be extremely dangerous. There are a handful of reports where these things have actually attacked humans and even killed them. That being said, 99% of the time, as soon as they realize they've been compromised, their MO is to turn and walk off. They really, they seem to be pretty reclusive and shy and just, but again, curious. A large percentage of the sightings are not so much people coming up upon them, but realizing that they are being watched and that these things are actually observing them. There's been a couple cases where these things have bluff charge, if you will, run people out. One case I can think of is an investigation I did on the Roaring River where a rock hound had gone upriver about a mile when there's no trails really along there, got way in there. He had his Australian Shepherd with him. He knew that when the river level dropped to a certain level, it exposed a lava bed, and in that lava bed there was this common opal, and he would go up there certain times of year and take his rock hammer and chisel and chip out these pieces of common opal. And this one particular time he went up there, he was down up toward the riverbank doing that, and his dog was just walking around, and suddenly the dog starts growling and barking, and it got to the point, it was pretty intense, so this gentleman decided to go see what, he figured he's got a squirrel or a, porcupine or something, raccoon. So he got up to where the dog was, and 47 feet, because we measured it 47 feet from the dog, was what he termed a gorilla. And he said this thing was grunting with every time it exhaled, it was grunting. It was very angry. It was looking right at the dog, and the dog was looking at it, and the thing was standing on two legs. And, of course, this guy decides to run for it and shoves the dog off the log, and they're running over very rough terrain. And this thing actually took chase. And it was kind of funny the way he described it, because he said every time the dog would get ahead of him, he'd grab the dog by the collar and pull him back behind him, I'm trying to picture this,
That's awful.
He wants the Bigfoot to get the dog instead of him.
Right. So they got to this one point where they stopped and looked back to see if this thing was still after them. And once the thing had stopped about 100 yards away, but as soon as they locked eyes, it charged them again. But they have no illusion at all that had this thing wanted to catch them, there'd be no question that it could have easily overtaken them. So, again, 90% of the time, 90+% of the time, these things just simply get up and walk off.
I mean, basically looking at, in my thoughts, we don't have anything that they need. We don't have anything that they want. So, any encounters are going to be accidental or, like Todd said, they're curious, which goes towards their intelligence. But yeah, there's nothing that we have that they need or want.
No.
They're very, yeah.
Oh, come on.
All right, well, hey.
They've never tried pizza, but besides that.
Oh, dumpster diving at Domino's.
Yeah.
Well, I hope that answers the question. At least that's my opinion as well.
Right. No, that was a good answer. I think we're gonna stop there for a minute and take a quick intermission. And when we come back, I think we have a few more questions for you from us. So, Grad, you wanna hit the button?
Where is it?
Everybody go get a drink and
Nite Callers Bigfoot Radio.
The icebox full of wine. He said to mine. Staring back at me ain't the man I used to see. I've been walking the line a long time, need a change. Breaking my back, working double shifts. The weight of the world's getting hard to lift. I'm starting to think I need to break a link in this chain. Something's got to give. This ain't no way to live. Put me on a highway, the interstate, a dirt road to any place. Long as I'm long gone, chasing down some blue skies in my old truck. Tune the world out, turn the radio up, sing along to my freedom song. Hey, I got a good woman and she understands. Every now and then, her old man needs some downtime to clear his mind and unplug. This time tomorrow you won't see my face. There'll be one less rat running in this race. I'll be soothing my soul with a fishing pole. That's what I love. Put me on a highway, interstate, a dirt road to any place. Long as I'm long gone, chasing down some blue skies in my old truck. Tune the world out, turn the radio up, sing along to my freedom song, yeah. Put me on a highway, the interstate, a dirt road to any place, long as I'm long gone, chasing down some blue skies in my old truck. Tune the world out, turn the radio up, sing along, yeah, sing along to my freedom song, yeah.
they're back.
And now
well, they will
back
be.
to our guests, Oregon Bigfoot researchers Todd and Diane Neiss.
Okay, welcome back.
Hi.
Hope everyone had a good break. Okay, so I had a question. I know, Todd, and I don't know about you, Diane. I know that you believe that that these creatures possess a relatively high IQ. What can you tell me? Like, what's your theory about all that?
Well, not necessarily a high IQ, because that's relative. I believe they're intelligent to their surroundings. I believe that, just like crows are problem solving. So why can't Bigfoot? So the intelligence level of them, just being able to stay elusive as they are, low contact with humans, being able to survive out in the wild, being able to walk and travel without being seen that much. I firmly believe that there is. I'm of the opinion, because belief is something that is, I'm of the opinion that they do have intelligence, that they do have the ability to problem solve. Many creatures out in the wild can do that, so I don't see why they don't have that ability.
Well, that being said, I think that is a key to solving this question, because I think, it's ridiculous to think that we can track them down when they've got the advantage in the wild. But on a couple of my expeditions, and I continue to do this, is to try to present to them very passive items, sounds, visual things that may entice them to come in. In fact, my first expedition in 1994, literally on the anniversary of my sighting, and again in 1998 with Peter and Ron, were dubbed Operation Entice Contact and Entice Contact 2, respectively. And so I think the key is to capitalize on that curiosity, and much along the lines of what Jane Goodall and Diane Fossey did, is to get out there and stay out there for a long period of time. And that's something that we intend to do once we retire, is to get out into an area that's had some recent activity and stay there long enough that they realize we're not just passing through, and that we're sticking around. And then again, like I say, present some things that they just might take interest in, and then ultimately compromise themselves to where we can get some good evidence.
Yeah, I had I had a sighting that I checked into in Florida when I was still living there. One of the witnesses contacted Tom Steenberg in D.C., and Tom then sent it to me. And this went on for years, and it was more of I feel that it was more of a curiosity on the side of the Bigfoot. It was in a water treatment plant outside of Titusville, Florida, which was in the St. John Wilderness Reserve. So it was, out in the, wilderness. And these things, they would come in, and they were fascinated by things like the lids on top of the treatment tanks. They'd lift them up and drop them and make these loud sounds, and then pick them up again and drop them. Other things were they had the front office had large picture windows, ceiling to floor, and the computers were there and had these, the like Windows screensavers, all the weird diagrams and colors. And in fact, one of the sightings that happened at that plant was one of the workers, one of the witnesses, Debbie, she'd walked into the office, and of course she worked the graveyard shift, so this was like 2 a.m. Most all the lights are out in the office, and she walked in and saw one looking in the window at the computer. which had the Windows screensaver with the various shapes and colors going all over the screen. So, curiosity, I think, really is a big factor in bringing them in. They're gonna, they're want to find out what's going on. They want to see what that is. They have a natural curiosity, I think, and that's what's one of the things that is going to help us as far in long term to establish a site, stay there, and eventually they're going to be curious and come, what those, semi-hairless humans are doing here.
When I talk about attractants and things that might lure them in, I talk about passive things such as chemical light sticks, hanging from a tree. They just glow softly and they don't make any noise. They're non-threatening. We've put out various types of bait. In fact, if your audience watched one of the more recent episodes of Survivor Man Bigfoot, you would have seen some of what I did, because I had mentioned to Les Stroud in one of our conversations about one experiment I did where I used chemical light sticks in conjunction with food and sound. I would take, for instance, on one stump I would have apples, and I would hang a red chemical light stick above that. Another one had potatoes, and I had a white light stick over that. Another one was corn. I had a yellow light stick over that. But nearby, I had some wind chimes. Again, a very quiet, non-threatening sound. And kind of like with Pavlov's dog, the idea is to get them to associate the light and the sound with the food. And I was a little surprised to see Les trying that on one of his latest episodes of Survivor Man Bigfoot. But it's things like that. You got to get kind of innovative. You got to think outside the box and try different things. Nobody's got it right yet. So.
Right. Okay, I wanted to ask Diane, or both of you, I know y'all started an organization. This one's a question from the chat. This person wants to know about the organization that Diane started.
Okay, I started, Stocking Hominid Research.
Yeah.
It was a nonprofit, and I started that back in 2007 as a way to hopefully, get funding for projects. Not real lucrative, but I have the website. Todd's got American Primate, and so now we're putting them together and making it into. Of course, we have to merge the websites and everything, but we're going to be American Primate Conservancy. So.
Okay, I think that answers the question. I think she wanted to know, why did you create it and what was the purpose? I mean, I know
to gain awareness, put information out there, actual concrete evidence. I'm big on discounting hoaxes or misidentifications. I've got sites, links to sites as far as animal sounds. It's for me, informative is one of the main things. It's if you're going to go out in the woods, be aware of what's around you. So I had links on animal sounds. The barred owls make so many. The variety of sounds that they make alone is huge. Coyotes. Even I've had people contact me about they heard something out in the woods and it was a grouse. So it more than anything was for information, to get out there to the general public. To, if you're going to go out in the woods, be aware of what's around you, as well as be aware of if you see something that you think is a Bigfoot, that's fine, take a picture. But more importantly, walk up to it. In most cases, it's a shadow or a stump or a tree or something like that. So, information was the main reason I have the website up, and as far as the nonprofit was to hopefully get funding to be able to do more research and to get information from others.
Okay.
Now, I've got a question for both of you. But Diane, first, considering that you're trying different passive ways of trying to bring them in, make contact with them in certain ways, you must be somewhere along that line. You're implying that you have theories, or you're running through your head about what the Bigfoot is. Now, there are different varieties across the country, different varieties around the world. And a lot of people have theories between Neanderthal or different other parts. Of course, they're anthropomorphizing the situation again. But what are your considerations along those lines?
Well, this is kind of where Todd and I differ. I lean more towards that they are of the same. Yeah. I lean more towards that they are of the same genus as us. Homo. Are they humans? No. But I believe they are the same genus as us, and that would be Homo something.
Right.
I don't think that they're a great ape or that they are Gigantopithecus.
Right.
And basically because just of their morphology and their physiology, in that their main form of locomotion is upright on two legs. Yes, have they been seen on fours? Yes. But their main form is bipedalism. The arms are longer, but then that could be evolutionary as well. I mean, to this point, we don't know. And like I said, it's a hypothesis and theory. But yeah, I lean more towards that they are of our same genus.
And I love the other line, and I tend to, I don't think they are Gigantopithecus per se, but I do believe they could be a subspecies of Gigantopithecus. I think that considering where Gigantopithecus was found and the fact that it was known to be bipedal, or at least suspected to be part of the time, that being in the Pacific Oriental, along the coast of China and Vietnam and as far north as Kamchatka, the opportunity for them to have migrated to the United States would have presented itself back when we had the what was known as Beringia, the land bridge between what is now known as Russia and Alaska, and that's again suspected how many of the Native Americans also transited into North America. But again, like Diane says, we don't know. Those are some of the questions that need to be answered yet.
Do either of you consider them to be part of the Out of Africa model, or do you even go along with the Out of Africa model?
Oh. Again, that's it. Because we don't know what they are. You can't speculate on where they came from. They very well could have been the Out of Africa. They very well could have been something else. Yeah, it's just too much to speculate. I don't even go there.
There's different types of monkeys scattered all over the world, and there are different types of primates scattered all over the world. And the only Out of Africa model I've seen people try to make, mostly is in what I consider to be anthropomorphism to a certain point. They've got a lot of DNA evidence for this, that, and the other thing. But there are so many different varieties of what they call the Bigfoot or the Yeti or the wild man or abominable snowman or something like that. Do you think they're all part of the same grouping of a type?
Todd, are you going to say something?
Well,
we're getting subjective here, but
yeah.
Well, sure, but when you look at the almas, for instance, in Russia, the Yeren in China, the orangutan in Sumatra, the Yowie in Australia, and there seems to be some similarities between them, that they are primate-like, keeping in mind that we are primates as well, but that they are bipedal. So we're seeing a variety of different bipedal hominid like creatures that very well could have came out of Africa and spread out over Asia and as far north as Russia. But you bring up a good point too, and this is something that I talk about in the lectures that I give, and that is when you look at the current distribution of primates today in the world. It's interesting to note in the Eastern Hemisphere, you have primates both in the northern and southern temperate regions, as well as the equatorial regions. When you go to the Western Hemisphere, you have them in the equatorial regions and the southern temperate region. And yet there is this glaring absence, if you ask me, of primates in the northern temperate regions. And why is that? Is there not the habitat? And of course there is. Is there not the resources, the food resources? Sure there are. And it should be noted that at one time, North America did host some primates, albeit smaller primates, and back in the Eocene era. But the John Day fossil beds in Central Oregon, for instance, have yielded baboon-size primate bones, and some of the first primates ever known to have existed in form of, at least the fossils, actually came from not the United States, but North America.
Well, the United States has gone through mass extinctions from some
kind of
natural disaster. Yeah, in various places at different times. It's possible that
and the geography has changed considerably too. Back when these baboon-sized primates existed in Central Oregon, it wasn't the high desert that it is today. It was more of a savanna. So, as our climate evolves and changes and goes through cycles, it supports different life forms. So, I believe these things preceded humans, Homo sapiens, into North America. In fact, in my research into Native American lore, they literally refer to them as the first ones or the old ones, and actually refer to them more of a tribe of people than animals.
They had their own language. They could communicate back and forth between the Indians and these Bigfoot.
Well, I look at it like, Homo sapien, that's us. But you've got Asians, Caucasian, you've got we're all the same, but we all look a lot different from each other. But we are all the same species. Is this a case with Bigfoot, Yeren, Almasti, whatever? Or are they subspecies of each other? Again, that's something we won't know until we actually have some kind of molecular evidence.
Mm-hmm.
Go ahead, Lauren.
Sorry, I was going to ask, what about languages?
Definitely.
Yep.
Well, that's something that is kind of been batted around for a while now. Of course, the recordings that Ron Moorhead and Al Berry recorded in the Sierras, known as the Sierra Sounds, have been studied in depth and have been determined to be some of it within human range, but a good part of it both below and above human voice range. And most recently, the work that Scott Nelson has done with them. He was a trained crypto linguist with the Navy. His job being to decode coded language, and he has gone so far as to state that they're not only do they have some rudimentary language, but he's put together a phonic alphabet of certain I don't know if you want to call them phrases or words, but there seems to be patterns to what the sounds that they're making.
Okay, we're in the long run. I mean, granted, you guys are still working out your patterns and trying to test in situations, but what is your long-term goal as far as, do you want to make contact with him, understand a culture, or something along those lines?
Our long-range goal, or end goal, if you will, is to determine to get them officially recognized, determine the health of their species, and if necessary, get them protected. My fear is that as humans, we have, in the past, have watched species that were recognized literally go into extinction, and the list is long. If you do some research on extinction, you'll find that we've got photographs of dozens and dozens and dozens of animals, and many of them quite large, that we literally, out of ignorance, have watched them one by one die off. And I want to make sure that my kids, my grandchildren, my great-grandchildren will have the same opportunity, albeit rare, to see these things sometime in their life. And I would feel incredibly guilty if I were to learn that these things were no more. And I think that's really should be the primary goal for any researchers with regards to these creatures. We need to get irrefutable evidence, and that's the hard part. It's hard enough just to find these things or to get a sighting of these things, let alone to get close enough to get that irrefutable evidence. In 1998, for instance, we had a biopsy dart gun which used specialized darts that, if you could get close enough to one of these creatures, you could dart it, and these darts were designed to burrow into the flesh of one of these creatures and then harmlessly fall out. A specialized needle would actually take a core sample of the epidermis, the dermis, and fatty tissue, and even some muscle tissue if need be, and we would have had our DNA right there. DNA is going to be, it is irrefutable. But that being said, we have no real basis, for these creatures. The best we're going to come up with at this point is no match. But, I'll take that because it's something that we can get into a database and start hopefully, finding some patterns and once we get into the nuclear DNA, find out hopefully some origins of these creatures.
Well,
but
theoretically,
our bottom line is that we want to
DNA somewhere.
get these protected. Yeah.
Theoretically. What do you think about that Melba Ketchum thing? Have you done any studying on that?
Well, now you're going to go all political on me.
No, this isn't political. There are different opinions about how it was handled, but there are some people who have read the actual reports and are starting to, waffle either direction about the situation.
Well, I just have issues when a person cannot get their research published in a scientific magazine and peer-reviewed, that they go out and purchase a scientific magazine in order to do that. That's just a big red flag with me.
Right. Okay.
I mean, you might as well give yourself a trophy.
Pretty much.
I mean, you're talking about somebody. Yeah, you're talking about someone who did horse lineage, So she knew her job there. And anybody that's had horses knows the routine. This is not heavy DNA science. This is just simply, blood work and matching up a lineage for, say, a stallion and their offspring, or a mare and her offspring. When you start getting into the DNA, you've got samples being thrown at you left and right. How are these samples handled? If there's no chain of evidence in a sample, then you can't. There's always going to be human contamination if it's not handled properly. Are the samples cleansed? Are they, processed properly so that they're, washed of any human contamination? And that was not done. I leave it more to, okay, this is people wanting something to be and working towards that goal than scientifically being, taking something, running it, and this is what we have.
Well, and Diane and I had the opportunity to spend some FaceTime with Dr. Brian Sykes, who, back when he was over here in the States, and he had a substantial collection of tissue samples that he was doing DNA studies on, including a number of the ones that, such as the Smeja sample that Melba had. And he said in every sample that he had, that was a portion of what she had, that he found absolutely no human DNA whatsoever. Now, her findings are different. So, I'm not a microbiologist, but I know a few, and I've listened to what they have to say, and I don't know. There's just a lot of red flags when it comes to Melba. That a lot more questions to answer.
Well, it's pretty much given us a black eye as far as that's concerned. Monster Quest with that one doctor from New York, I can't remember his name right now. All of them have pretty much given Bigfoot a black eye when it comes to DNA. Who are we going to use anymore? Like Dr. Sykes, you have already mentioned. But there's going to be, there's going to have to be more than one doctor to be able to compare the situations, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, there's, that's the tough part, is finding some that are willing to put their reputations on the line. I have a short list of molecular biologists that have been willing to take samples, and I've sent them samples. Todd Neiss is one that I have some pretty high confidence in. Andrew Lind, he's a MIT graduate, PhD in microbiology, and he'll be at Beachfoot this year. We had a chance to meet him back at the Ohio conference that we spoke at in April. He's willing to take samples. Eric Steiner is a PhD out of University of California and a protege of Dr. Esteban Sarmiento, and he's another great source to go to. So there are some out there that are willing to step up and accept samples, and I'd be more than happy to get you some contact information on those folks. I know Andrew and Esteban and Eric will all be at Beachfoot as well. And Eric's actually developed a very clinical protocol for collecting samples, and he's been very open about sharing that, how to do it properly, how to package it, how to store it, how to and how to get it to him, and he's more than willing to do that. I have people going, well, how much does that cost you? Well, to date, I know it's expensive to do, but to date, they haven't charged me anything.
With the problems that everybody was having with like the Ketchum and the Erickson project and stuff like that, have you pretty much got it in your head about how you would handle putting it out into the public, per se?
Well, it's got to be peer reviewed like any other any other hypothesis, it's not going to become a theory until such time as it's been peer-reviewed and by at least 3 individuals, and then published in a scientific paper. So I mean, there's a protocol for that and how that's done on any subject.
I heard Diane go, what do you think?
Well, basically the same. It's just, I keep thinking things like, well, no matter what samples we have and whatever their conclusion come up to, the best we can hope for is unknown until we have an actual body to fit it to. It's always going to be unknown. You've got to be careful when you have samples. I've had many people give me hairs that were either, hair from a hog or a horse or a deer, things like that. Actually,
would there be enough samples to be able to come up with a good enough genome to be able to make a comparison between different primates?
That's a possibility. I don't know about the total samples. So far the samples that people are getting are very limited. But it comes down to whatever it comes out to be. It's going to be either something known or something unknown. So now we've got something that's unknown. So what do we compare that to? What baseline do we have? We don't. We just are facing something right now that it is an unknown. So, I certainly don't want to go out and shoot one. I'm hoping one will be found, that died of natural causes or, unfortunately if it got hit by a truck or something. But that's where we stand at the moment. So many people, tell me like, once they're found, then it's over. And I'm like, no, that's when the fun begins.
Right.
I want to learn. I want to, behavior and what are they? Are they closer to ape? Or are they closer to homo? Are they, what's their gestation? What's their range? None of this. We don't, we have no idea. It's speculation. So yeah, hair samples are great.
Understand is that DNA is not the end result.
No.
That's not the end of the game.
It is not.
No, but it's a start. And which brings up the ultimate question, like Diane mentioned, was, the ultimate find is going to be to have a type specimen. And that is the Holy Grail. And which brings up the question of killing a Sasquatch. I don't think that's something that we would entertain, but these things die, obviously, whether it be by simply old age or by disease or by injury. These things do die, and ideally we would like to come across the body really in any form, even fossilized, but the problem is nature is an incredible recycling machine. And case in point, I shot an elk, Roosevelt elk up in that Saddle Mountain area I was speaking of earlier, and the weather was turning, and so I did a very field expedient field dressing and left actually. I took the hindquarters and shoulders and backstrap. I left quite a bit of the carcass there. And I went back 3 weeks later, and the only way you could have told that there was an animal there at all was there was about a 1 foot square patch of hide that had gotten caught up in the salmonberry thorns. Other than that, the entire 500 pounds worth of animal was simply gone in 3 weeks. Between predators and scavengers and bacteria and parasites and weather, even the acidity in the soil, animals decompose very quickly.
Mm-hmm.
Especially up here, down in the Everglades, there are a lot of places that it disappears too quickly. There's no perfect condition to be able to find a body. It would just be luck.
Pretty much. Pretty much.
Unless
we've got a lot of speculation. Oh, please.
He's so damn lucky it's ridiculous.
Yeah, if that's what you want to call it.
So you're a little different angle. So you are trying to draw them in various ways. What are you going to do when you actually get one drawn in?
Study the animal behavior, trying to.
What did Diane Fossey or Jane Goodall do? They didn't shoot gorillas. They didn't.
Oh yeah, I know.
They,
you're sitting around the
basically got them.
And one just kind of comes to the edge of the campfire. How are you going to handle that situation?
Well, I'm certainly not going to run after it, but I will. I'm not going to go anywhere. I'm not going to go anywhere, meaning that, like I said earlier, let it be known, we're not going anywhere. We're here. Eventually they'll come closer. Eventually we'll get, hopefully, some kind of studies going as far as their range. Maybe eventually be able to, follow them, track them. I don't know. There's so much up in the air.
I'm talking about, this person comes to the edge, comes to the edge of the campfire, and you're sitting around having a good time, and you see some eye shine, you see the rocking back and forth. And would you just sit there and continue chit-chatting, or would you possibly look at it and go, woo, and just,
I would. Well, I brought this subject up years ago with Dr. Henner Fehrenbach, who's a primatologist, and Henner told me, that's the $1 million question, because you make a good point. The end game, nobody plays it out to that point. Everybody wants to see one, but then what? And nobody thinks about that. Then what? When I talk to people about doing it, I say you need to steel yourself. You need to prepare yourself. You need to visualize that situation and come up with a plan B. And what Henner suggested is, if you encounter one of these creatures, to simply act very passive. Take a seat on the ground or on the trail where you happen to be. Do not make direct eye contact with it. Perhaps take a stick and draw in the dirt, or pick up a pine. Just be very nonchalant, like you can care less that it's there. And that's a hard thing to do. But this is based on his interaction with primates in the wild. Is two things you don't do: is stare right at them, or open your mouth wide, because both of those things are considered threat gestures to large primates, and that might not turn out so well.
Well, that's still coming at it from a large primate outlook, but they're standing there staring at you.
What would you do?
Right, they're standing here staring at you. Would you? I can't see why you wouldn't be able to look them directly in the eye and say hi. How would you take it from there?
Again, what I tell you is their MO, when they realize they've been compromised, isn't to stand there and have a staring contest. It is to get up, turn around, and walk off. And I think your best chances are to act very benign and non-threatening, and go about your business, and act as if you don't know they're there, and perhaps you can get them to stay around a lot longer, and again over time. And again, we're talking about a long-term project, but idea is to, like Fossey and Goodall did, and Bakatis, is to get these creatures to get acclimated to you, and get that much more close to you, and like I say, pique their curiosity, get them to come in.
I'd probably screw the whole thing up and say something to them. I would want them to know. Yeah, I would have to make some kind of a verbal communication with them. I don't know whether it would mess things up or not, but first overcome the, oh shit, there's a Bigfoot standing next to me. Then, I'd probably say something. I'd probably glance over in its direction and say something. Whether what it does then is turn around.
Yeah, taking it for granted that you're kind of. I'm subjecting myself. Taking it for granted that they've got human capabilities. They're humanoid type. They have a language. They have communication. They might even have a certain amount of a culture within their own grouping.
Which is possible, yes.
In going by the Indians, and how they have said that they do trade with them. Some do trade. Some have adversarial contact with them, whatever. But some say they actually sit across from each other and have a conversation.
I would like to do that. Yeah. I would definitely, once I overcome the shit factor, that, I'd like to, I think that, I would definitely, make it known to them that, I know you're there, and say something. Try to, do some kind of communication. Not that they're going to understand my English, but, I would do something to let them know that, I know you're there, and,
Well, they have as much fear about us as we do about them. So there's that fear factor between the two of them has to be broken down.
Right. But of course, you've still got to be non-threatening. Don't get up, don't turn towards it. But I'd definitely try to, at least if nothing else, turn towards it and talk to it, and that way it's aware that I know it's there, and go from there. Any kind of contact or communication is important, whether we understand each other or not. Body language itself plays a big part. So, just let them know, hey, I know you're there. I'm here. How you doing? Don't kill me. I won't shoot you.
Right. Yeah. The posse rule can only go so far because the apes don't necessarily have the same level as these things possibly could, being closer to a humanoid type. So you might be able to extrapolate a little bit more, get a little bit more attempting into a communication level.
And that could very well be possible. How long that encounter would last is unknown, but it's a start. But that, again, would then be where you would need to continually be in that area long term so that they can continue to come around and you can continue to prolong the experience or some kind of contact with them. So, that would be great.
One of the problems somebody had brought up a little while back was that they have a fear sometimes of possibly causing a dependency about certain things, as far as like leaving out bait or, getting them used to receiving from you or something along those lines. And if for some reason you stop doing that, there's a disappointment factor along those lines. So it's kind of a razor's edge to walk along. Right. We don't know what their culture is and what the thinking process is.
I don't think it'll ever be a point where they are dependent on us for something, but I totally understand what you're getting at. You don't want to keep giving them treats and then stop, and then, you don't want to get them all ticked off at you, and, then you don't know what the consequences might be. Baiting is a way to, curiosity of bringing them in, but I don't think it should be a prolonged thing.
Right. They get an addiction to Jiffy peanut butter or something like that, and you stop one day.
Because I love Jiffy peanut butter too, and I'd really be upset if somebody stopped my, supply. But
you can't go to 7-Eleven and get some more.
No, that's just not going to happen. So you have to be careful, and as far as any kind of leaving something out, it is, in my opinion, it needs to be something that they are possibly able to get to. Apples, if you're, out in Washington, say, salmon, fish, something like that they can still get on their own.
Mm-hmm. Well, on that note, I was going to say, on that note, I was fortunate enough to be given the master keys to all the gates in that warehouse or area where I had my sighting, thanks to Peter Byrne. And I spent like I say, we drill with the National Guard. We drill 1 weekend a month. So every month I went down there. I would go down to a fish market in Seaside and buy basically salmon carcasses. They would sell this stuff to crabbers to put in their crab traps. It was basically, heads and skin and some meat, tails, that kind of thing. And for 8 months, every month I would go actually to the very site where I had seen these things and put this in a clear plastic bag, perforate it so that the smell would get out, and hang it with parachute cord roughly 10 feet off the ground in hopes of getting these things to come in. And every time I went back there, that bait was taken. But again, credit to Henry Fehrenbach, he kind of told me how to hang it. You want to put it on a branch that can just support the bait itself, but not another animal. For instance, you wouldn't want a raccoon to, for instance, to be able to get out on that branch. But every month that bag was not only gone, but it was torn down. I would tie that parachute cord in a very, tight knot around the top of the bag, and just that small section of bag that was in that knot was the only thing left every time I went back, and the bag was nowhere to be seen. And I made an effort to scout around that area looking for the remains of the bag, because if some animal just took it down, you would assume it would just consume it on the spot, and that bag would be stuck in the brush somewhere. But it appeared that whatever got to it, and there wasn't a whole lot of animals that can get something at 10 feet, but whatever got to it, removed that bag and carted it off. But yeah, Diane's right. You want to use, indigenous foods in the area. I think, something that they can recognize, something we know they eat, and, salmon is one of those things.
Okay, I'm going to let Lauren take over for the last part of it. You there, Lauren?
Yeah, I'm here. Okay, so we have about 8 minutes left before we go off air, or before Blog Talk cuts us off rudely, as usual. I wanted to know about Beachfoot. I kind of wanted to know how it started and what y'all have going on this year, when it is. I was just going to hand the mic over to you guys and let you tell everyone about it.
Well, Beachfoot was something, it's something that's been on the back of my mind for a long time. As I traveled across the United States and Canada, giving talks, presentations, if you will, at various symposiums and conferences, and getting to meet these wonderful people who I've come to know as friends now, but were just heroes to me in the field, and share the stage with them. I always lamented the fact that, Rene Dehinnen would be talking and I'd be following him, and he'd come off stage, I'd be going on the stage, it's like, hi, bye, good luck, good job, bye. And then I thought, God, I'd like to spend some time with that guy. And I was fortunate enough over the years to personally know all four of the so-called horsemen of Sasquatchery. I was very privileged to share the stage with John Green and Rene and Peter Byrne and Grover Krantz and many, many others, Jeff Meldrum, Dendernagel. And I just thought, what would it be like to get all these guys in the room at the same time? I mean, all this data, all this history, and there too, I noted that there was some feuds going on. We all know there's Bigfoot politics going on and large egos and competition going on, and I'd say, well, I like that guy and I like that guy, but they don't like each other. But I could just only imagine if we got together and they had a chance to get to know each other, they'd get along. So in 2008, I put together the first Beachfoot gathering. Diane was there, and it was 30, 35 people, I think, the first go around, where you can add 100 to it now. We're trying to keep it small, but it's, I took it a step further. Instead of, what would it be like to have all these people in the same room one time, I said, what would it be like if these guys all around a bonfire with a cold beer in their hand? And really, that's the genesis of Beachfoot. And for the last 7 years, it's been really more of a retreat than a conference. It's a private place where researchers can come and share their information, get to know one another on a personal basis, network, and we've had people from 5 different countries and nearly every state in the United States, and it's been a virtual who's who in Bigfooting, and it's just a lot of fun. And we get these folks, published authors, PhDs, well-known researchers, and even some celebrities that actually pay to come to these things instead of being paid, and volunteer their time to address the group. And we try to mix it up a little bit, and it's a lot of fun. People bring guitars, and we have potluck barbecue, and it's 4 days of camping in a private campground. And I think I shot you a list of the guests, or a guest list that's coming this year. Mm-hmm. But it's just turned out to taken on a life of its own, and like I say, this year will be our 8th annual Beachfoot, and Diane and I host it, and we love doing it, and it's really just an effort of love on our part, and
just keep it small.
It's just a lot of fun. Yeah, and that's what we've tried to do. We've tried to keep it at 100 people. Right. This year it got a little out of hand. I mean, we could have 500 people there if we wanted to, but we try to keep it very quaint and comfortable. There's no vendors. There's no paying audience. There's no vendors. There's no media. It's just a place where they can get together and outside of the glare of all that, and just get to know one another.
Well, I've never heard a bad thing about it. I've always heard everyone has a really good time, and that it is pretty laid back. And so thank you guys for coming on tonight, and thank you for telling us all about Beachfoot. I hope you have a good turnout this year and everything goes well.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, no, we really enjoyed this show. Y'all have been really great. Thank you. Yeah, feel free to put the links to your anything that you guys have. Put the links in the chat, and you can also share them on our Facebook page if you would like.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, no problem. So thank you guys so much again for coming on. Y'all were really, really awesome.
Well, thank you. You're welcome.
All right, and on that note, I think we're going to go ahead and call it a night.
Good night, everybody.
Good night, everybody.
Good night, everyone. See y'all next week.